Hello guys, I'm Super Ron. Welcome back to the channel. We're back here at Autoshack again for another Porsche episode. But this is one you may not recognise. We've had many 911s on the channel. We had the 928 S4 on the channel. But this is a 1995 968 Sport. It had a new owner and he brought it straight to us because there's a few little jobs he wanted sorting out on it. We got all that finished last week. He took it away and within a day it had died. Luckily, it's pure coincidence and it is nothing we had done or we had looked at, but the alternator just decided to stop charging. So that is one of the jobs we're going to fix today. So like I said, the owner had only recently purchased this car and on the way home, he started feeling the clutch being a bit funny. And with a few days, it got worse and worse and all of a sudden it sunk to the floor and got stuck. He managed to get it home by hooking his foot underneath, picking it back up, pumping it a few times and got a clutch. But the next time he went to use it, popped down again. And by the time it had come to us, the slave cylinder had completely given up. So we managed to get a new slave and new master cylinder from Porsche. I did a full fluid change and the clutch is again perfect. Now, just like the 928 we did have in, these are front engined, rear gearbox. So they have a torque tube down the middle, but the clutch in flywheel is still at the front on the engine. So it wasn't too bad to do and that got it back up and running. We then gave it a full service. All the bits were still available from Porsche. They actually do a service pack which all come in a Porsche box, had all the filters, the spark plugs and everything else we needed to give it the full service. We got that done and got it running really nice again. I had a few little electrical jobs I was doing inside, like this side mirror didn't work and that's just some bad connections. The clock was broken, just like the 928s. We put a replacement screen in that and now that's all up and running again. There's a few other jobs all the way around that needed a little bit of finessing. So we thought we were all done and the new owner could then carry on to enjoy his new Porsche. However, within a few days of being with us, it stopped charging. We've had a look and the alternator is getting its positive feed. So it is just a case of the alternator dying. It's this time of year, they're under full load, lights on, wipers on, blowers on, heated screen on. I know 3 alternators that have died in as many weeks. So we've got a new alternator to go on. We've also got a stereo upgrade to put into this. So they are our jobs for today. And here are our new bits to fit. So we've got our new alternator to go on to give us some power. And then we've got our favourite head unit to fit on these retros, the Blaupunk DAB head unit, because it looks just like an old original tape player, but it's got a few little tricks up its sleeve. I'll show you when we get it on. And we've got some updated speakers to go on as well. So I think I'll stick the alternator on first, give us some power, and then get the new stereo in. So as we pop the hood in the front, Porsche started to see sense and put engines in the front like everyone else. But unlike the 928 that had the massive V8, this is actually a 4-cylinder. But they made that up with displacement and this is actually a 3-litre 4-cylinder. So it has a massive 104mm bore. Each cylinder is 750cc, which is colossal. They have massive balancer shafts on each side, one at the top and one at the bottom. That's driven by a second cam belt. When it was here last week and I took all the covers off to check all the belt, it's quite a weird setup. They have one cam belt to run the cam and another cam belt purely to run the 2 balancer shafts. But everything in here was really good condition. It's a nice low mileage example. And even though it's only a 4-cylinder, normally aspirated, that displacement produces 237 horsepower. So they are still quite lively and they haven't got all the weight in the engine bay. Right, before we start the alternator, we need to disconnect the battery. And something that's just occurred to me, a little job that I did have to do last week was to fix the switch onto the key because this key lock doesn't actually unlock everything. It just triggers a micro switch. And just like the 928 that we did before, it's an electronic mechanical system. So there is like a window wiper motor and it's got a little arm on it and you click the key and that rotates and then unlatches the latches. So with a flat battery, are we going to be able to get in? Hopefully it's got enough just to turn that motor. Ah, lucky that. Otherwise, we would have to climb through, which I don't think we would have been able to get to because of the partial shelf, and pull the emergency strap. So we can get to the battery, disconnect that, and then start on our job. And the battery is down here, always negative first. And we're safe. And the alternator is right down at the bottom there. So we'll go from underneath. And then underneath, we can see this front-engined rear gearbox setup. So there's the engine there. That's the winged sump. And then you've got a bell housing here. So that's got the clutch inside it. You can see it shiny through that hole. Starter motor, so flywheel, clutch slave cylinder is there just above those wires. I had to replace that last time it was in. And then it has a torque tube that goes down the car. You can just see it there. That's got a drive shaft that turns inside it, and that goes down to the transaxle at the back. So you've got the gearbox and diff all together as one in the back of the car. On the autos, I'm sure the torque converter was at the back, but on the manuals, the clutch is at the front. So we need to get this under tray off, and the alternator should be just here. And off. And there it is, nice and easy to get to. You can see the new belts that I put on there last time it was in. So it's just a case of the mechanical adjuster on the bottom. Nice and easy, one bolt at the top, and then a couple of wires at the back. Nice and easy to get to, and we'll swap that over. Out it comes. Right, let's compare it with this one. Yep, looking good. I have just found a difference, the size of the holes. So this one, it's like an M8, fits nice and tight in there. This one is an M10 with a thread at the end. Not going to be ideal. So I thought I can't really put a bigger bolt in here because then it won't get through the housing that's on there. But inside the housing, it had this tube sits in there which takes up the slack. So we can in fact put a bigger bolt in the bracket in there and get rid of this spacer. So I just need to find a bigger bolt to go in here because otherwise that's going to rattle around and not tension properly. So we need a bigger one of these. Our magic drawer has never let us down yet. Let's have a look. And hey presto. Perfect. Let's get it on. And there it is, all on, all tensioned up. I also had to put an M10 on the bottom bolt hole because the alternator had an M10 hole. But luckily the shackle had a little spacer in for the M8 bolts. So I just took the spacer out and the M10s went straight in. So if anything, we've upgraded the alternator mounts. M10 all round, all tensioned up, wires all on the back. Let's give it a test. Battery back on. And we are back charging again. Let's just check the battery. And that is pumping it in. Perfect. At the beginning of the year, we did in fact have another one of these. So as rare as they are, we have had two in exactly the same colour. When we had the RS2 in, this was in at the same time. So it's a good comparison between the two, as they were both 95 cars, and this is also a 95. So I have in fact done a lot of fault finding and a lot of electrical work on the other one, which did put me ahead when I started investigating this one. So from the front, these are very similar to the 928 with the controversial pop-up headlights. I mean, these are some funny looking bug-eyed things when they are up. But to me, it just seems unfinished. I don't know, I suppose it's the quirk of the car. I do quite like them when they're down, but when they pop up, it just looks like a Citroen 2CV to me, and that's something I can't unsee. But overall, this one is in very, very nice condition. It varies at the back. It's kind of a cross between a 944 and a 928 here, because the 928 had the big wraparound windows, whereas this one's got the smaller windows, just like the 944, and the big glass screen. But then this has much more modern lights than the 944, and they do look very cool. Right, on to the dab. So inside we have got a really nice Kenwood head unit, but it's not really period correct for the era. So we're going to hopefully just be a straight swap with this one. So like I said earlier, these look like a retro tape deck, but in fact in this little slot here is a SD card slot, USB and aux slot, and they cover up like that. Really cool looking little feature. So let's get these swapped over. Little double knife action. I should. Slot out. And because this is an aftermarket head unit, someone's already done the difficult job of converting it from Porsche to ISO. So that's good. So we won't be needed to wire in these. It will just be straight plug and play. I did notice there was a power wire to the battery in the boot. So I thought there must be an amp somewhere. And there is, because we've got these phono leads. So somewhere in here, there is an amp. I haven't found a sub, so it must be for the speakers, I guess. Just got the cages swapped over, so everything's ready to plug and play in. We just need to add our DAB radio. So this is one that sticks onto the windscreen. We'll probably put it like this one up in the corner of the windscreen there. It's got a nice long cable on it. So we'll run it from there, underneath, up, probably to this top corner. And then it'll be full DAB. And there's the DAB aerial stuck on. Pretty discreet. That runs down there, under the glove box, around. Comes out of the head unit. I've also put the mic for the hands-free call. See there, that runs down, across. That pops out here as well. So we are ready to go back in. So all plugged in, ignition on. Look at that. All works. Off. Goodbye. So that's a success. We'll clip that in properly, get these trims back in, get that trim back on, and then it's just the speakers to go. And all back together, like nothing has changed. That DAB radio is nice and discreet. Antenna up there, and when I just turn the ignition on, it already preset all its DAB stations. It's already all tuned in. The technology. I also like how it's got raised buttons, so it actually looks like it's got a rewind, a fast forward and an eject for the tape player, but it's just all to make it look that little bit more retro. Very cool. So last thing to have a look is these 6-inch Pioneer speakers. So I'm going to pop these covers off, because I'm sure when I took the door card off before to sort out the electric windows, these have like little tiny 5x7s or something like that in. So I'm just going to pop that cover off, because these might not work. Yeah, that's what I thought. They had little oval ones in here. But these are uprated ones in there already. Maybe there is some in the back there. I'll just check them out, pop the covers off. Now, they have got seat belts in the back and seats, but really, I don't think they're meant for actual real size people. So let's just pop these covers off and see what speakers are in the back. Aha! That looks more like it. That's where they go, so we'll squeeze in there. And I've just noticed that the phono leads and the remote wire do run to the back. So the amp must be somewhere in the back. Got a battery that side, and that's where I noticed the amp wire. That must go. Aha. Got a Sony unit, so that must be a really old one from a previous head unit. And we have got a little amp there, so that must run those rear speakers. There's the phono leads going in. So let's swap those speakers around in the rear cards. These ones look a lot better, so they are the same size, but you can see the difference in height, how technology has come along. These Kenwood ones are quite old and they're 150 watts. These Pioneer ones are 300 watts. So you can see how much easier it is these days to fit big power speakers into doors and things. Because these are twice as powerful as these, but only half the size. So we'll get these boomers in, which sound a lot better. Under these door cards, it looks like it probably should have had 2 speakers in from factory, and it's had these Kenwood upgrades put in. Because there's 2 little speaker vents on the door card, then you've got kind of this big oval. But it also looks like this is the factory Porsche wiring to it as well. So I'm not sure where that amp goes to that we found in the back, whether it is actually connected to anything or whether there's a sub or something in the back. And Pioneers are in. I just gave it a squidge of seal around the outside as well before I put it in, because we've only got 3 out of 4 bolt holes. I didn't want it vibrating. Let's cover this back up. So the auto changer actually lifts out, and on the back is a nice Alpine amp, but it's not actually connected to anything anymore. So I reckon the previous owner at some point must have had a sub in the boot, but now this is all not doing anything. And obviously the Sony auto changer isn't connected to anything else either. So we'll speak to the customer, but we'll probably take all that out as it's not needed. But it is a nicely done little install in there. Right, I think with the interior all back in, we are done on this one. We've got our alternator all on, we're fully charging. I've just given the rest of the car a check over and that's all good too. We've got our new period correct looking head unit in there. It looks so much nicer in a completely standard car like this. Sometimes a modern head unit just looks out of place, so this is a great alternative. They have crystal clear sound, DAB radio, you've got the Bluetooth to your phone, so you've got hands-free calling, and they just sound so much better. We've got our new speakers in the back. So altogether, day-to-day driving, this is gonna make this such a nicer classic. I hope you've enjoyed this quick little recap on these, catching up with what I did last time, but these are quite a rare car. Even though we've had 2 in here, I've never actually seen one out on the road. And when they came in, I didn't even know what it was. So I'm gonna wrap this video up here. Make sure you give it a like and be sure to tune in next time because we've always got something different here at Autoshack. But until then, make sure you have fun.